Peace, peace and power. Peace and power and elevation be to all you beautiful people out there. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. Live in effect. So class is in session. Well, I'm not a teacher. But today's lesson will be about Dorothy Bolden. Dorothy Bolden was a domestic worker, and she was from Atlanta, Georgia. And she started the National Domestic Workers Union. Okay, so the National Domestic Worker Union was a union that was organized of people who, particularly women, for the most part, that did domestic work. So domestic means household work, such as being a maid, such as being a midwife, anything that's considered household duties. Yeah, that's what it was about. So her whole purpose, by her being a domestic worker herself, she wanted to get some type of organization for women to be able to have something, or for the domestic workers to be able to have a voice, to have proper representation. All right, so this is what the video is all about today. So today I am going to go into this topic, and I'm going to show you guys who Dorothy Lee Bolden is. All right. So this right here, this is the biography. Okay. All right. So this biography comes from wiki1.com. And according to the information, who was Dorothy Lee Bolden? So Dorothy Lee Bolden was born on October 13th of 1923 in Atlanta, Georgia. All right. And she died on July 14th of 2005 in Atlanta, Georgia at the age of 81. So she organized the National Domestic Workers Union of America. Okay. And it started in Atlanta. All right. She was the founder of the Domestic Workers Union of America and worked to fight for women's rights and bring segregation to an end. Bolden worked as a domestic worker at the age of 9. At the age of 9, she would eventually utilize her past experience to form the Domestic Workers Union in Atlanta, Georgia. Through the Domestic Workers Union, thousands of women have secured better pay and working conditions throughout the United States. All right. So her parents was Georgia May Patterson and Raymond Bolden. Both her parents provided for their family. Her mother was a housekeeper and her father was a chauffeur. Early education was difficult for Bolden due to poor eyesight. After a fall that damaged her optic nerve at age of 3. She didn't gain her vision until the age of 9. She started working at the age of 9 as a domestic worker and continued in this work for 49 years. Bolden went to E.P. Johnson Elementary School and then David T. Howard High School. However, she only attended 9th grade and then had to stop because she needed to financially support herself. As a young woman, she traveled to Chicago to go to school for dress designers, but her poor eyesight hindered her education. During the World War II, Bolden also worked at Sears and the National Linen Service, where she recognized the early efforts for unionization and labor rights. Martin Luther King Jr. was an early influence in Bolden's life, who was her neighbor at the time of the Civil Rights Movement. All right, so she began her work at 9, at a very young age. And this is what inspired her, because during that time period, there was no such thing as child laboring law. Okay? And you got paid whatever amount of money that was given to you. So if you was a domestic worker, whatever that family paid you, that's how much you was going to get paid. So you really didn't have no right. You didn't have no say so as far as minimum wage is concerned, or any type of livable wage you was looking for, you didn't have any rights or say so on it. So whatever the family offers to pay, that's how much you had to take. But let me go ahead and continue. All right. So it goes on to say Bolden was a lifelong domestic worker and extremely proud of her profession. She often spoke highly of this labor and was quoted in a supplement to the Atlanta Journal and the Atlanta Constitution 1983 as saying a domestic worker is a counselor, a doctor, a nurse. She cares about the family. She works for her as she cares about her own. But domestic workers have never been recognized as part of the labor force. Bolden became an activist well before the re-emergence of the civil rights movement in the 1960s. In the 1940s, Bolden refused a request from her boss, a white woman, to stay late and wash the dishes. Her boss altered local police, who respond by taking her to a county jail for psychiatric evaluation. In an oral history interview from 1995, Bolden recalled the severity of the incident. They told me I was crazy because I had talked back to a white woman. And at that time period, black people, especially a black woman talking back to somebody that's white, that was unacceptable. Because remember, white people had those type of authority. So if a white person tell you to do something and you refuse to do it, it was going to be used against you. All right. So she said, they told me I was crazy because I had talked back to a white woman and called in some psychiatrists to prove it, said Bolden. A white woman's word was gospel, and two psychiatrists actually thought I was crazy. This was the way you got locked up. This was the system. And so with the help of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Bolden was able to build relationships with families all over Atlanta. Women were able to open up to Bolden about their experiences as domestic workers. Life for domestic workers was very challenging. During the 1960s, domestic workers endured 13-hour work days and received little as $3.50. However, in 1968, Bolden started discussion with other unions about beginning to organize a national union for domestic workers. The union helped improve the wages and working conditions of domestic workers in Atlanta and served as an example for other domestic workers all across the country. Bolden eventually gathered 13,000 women from 10 different cities, benefiting from job referrals and organization. The union helped to increase wages and working conditions for domestic workers. The records of this union are kept at the organization's office in the Southern Labor Archives at Georgia State University. Under her leadership, the National Domestic Workers Union fundamentally influenced the treatment of domestic workers. Bolden was central to action that increased Atlanta wages by 33% over 2 years and won workers' compensation and Social Security right for all domestic workers. Now, she made a huge difference. Bolden was also responsible for registering thousands of African Americans to vote. Her work improved the living condition of many residents throughout Atlanta. Bolden's efforts gained the attention of the Nixon administration, and she was appointed to an advisory committee on social service and welfare. So her personal life, Bolden married her first husband in 1941, but that ended in divorce. Later on, she married Abram Thompson, and they had 6 children together: Frank, Avon Butts, Dorothy Ingram, Altamillis Gates, Abram, and Anthony. To support her family, Bolden had to work in many different jobs, including the Greyhound bus station, Linen Supply Company, Sears Roebuck, and Railroad Express. Although Bolden was a domestic worker, she did not accept jobs that did not involve child care. She loved working with children and seeing them develop into young adults. Bolden died in Atlanta on July 14th of 2005. So now Atlanta has given her a dedication. So right here, I'm on Atlanta Journal Constitution website, and Atlanta murals to honor Dorothy Bolden, who organized domestic worker. So this is a painting in out here in Atlanta. Okay, this is the painting of her. And it says, Altamonice Thompson Gates used to wonder just how many Dorothy Bolden there were. Her mother was everywhere doing a million things, it seems, at once. She fought for protection and fair pay for Black domestic workers. She encouraged people to vote and join the fight for racial equality. When women who were formerly incarcerated needed to work, she helped them find jobs, and she raised 6 children. I was in awe to just how she moved. You would think it was more than one Dorothy Bolden, said Thompson Gates, a retired Stone Mountain resident. I'll never forget. Mom would be busy working these long hours, and then you would look up and all of a sudden see her at your classroom door. So, again, she was the founder of the National Domestic Workers Union of America, which was established in the late 1960s and fought for protection and higher pay for Black women who worked for low wages as the invisible housekeepers, nannies, and caregivers in the home of middle-class and wealthy whites. Bolden, the daughter of a domestic worker, began doing laundry when she was 9. So she knew the struggles. And this is her again right here in the glasses. Okay. Now, Bolden, who died in 2005, and domestic workers are being celebrated in a series of murals on 4 buildings close to Vine City. Now, Vine City is on the west side of Atlanta. So Vine City is on the west side of Atlanta. So that's not far from downtown area. All right, but anyways, okay, where she lived most of her life. So she lived most of her life in Vine City. Each mural depicts a different aspect of Bolden's story. The project is part of the ongoing Dear Domestic Workers Thank You campaign launched by the We Dream in Black organizing project of the Georgia chapter of the National Domestic Workers Alliance. So NDWA was itself founded in 2007 when more than 50 domestic workers from across the nation met in Atlanta for a national domestic worker gathering, according to the organization. It says on Saturday, beginning at 11 a.m., there will be a 5 miles mural touring celebrating Bolden and highlighting domestic and care workers as part of Elevated, a city public arts program. So yeah, this is the address, etc., where the event's gonna take place. But this was written back in October, so I guess it already passed. But yeah, this is where they was doing the celebration and stuff. Okay, to honor her legacy and all. But anyways, it says the mural are located at 1313 Sylvan Road, 884 Murphy Avenue, 1545 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, and 829 Joseph E. Boone Boulevard. The mural by Williams, for instance, is close to the model bus stations. The location on Murphy Avenue is a nod to Bolden's outreach to domestic workers as they commute by bus. She would talk to them about their rights and listen as they talk about the racism they face on the job. Okay, so it says Smith come from generation of domestic workers who included her grandmother and several great aunts. And then go on and say, I wanted the murals to highlight the work of domestic workers and show pride in their work, she said. She learned more about Bolden, who she said was a woman we live up in the organization. Dorothy Bolden was like a household name for We Dream in Black. She was the one who saw something needed to be done and created change. In the civil rights movement, women were often present but rarely got the same recognition as their male counterparts. Bolden was close friends with others like Representative John Lewis and the Reverend Hosea Williams. She was a powerhouse, said Smith. She was unbossed. Now, this was written by Sheila Poole. Okay, again, this article came out on October the 15th of 2021. All right, so that's her. And before I continue, I just want to say this. To me, I find this very amazing that a woman who came from nothing, basically, she came from nothing, grew up on the west side of Atlanta, started work at an early age of 9, when most typical 9-year-olds somewhere playing in the park or double dutching or something like that. She didn't have time to do that. She didn't have that opportunity. A lot of our grandparents didn't even have that chance. So they had to do what was necessary to provide for the household. So when you come from a household where not only your mother is working, but also the child will have to work too to make sure everybody's financially stable. So she had to end up being the breadwinner. Okay? So we cannot forget that our grandparents, great-grandparents, and their great-grandparents put up a fight to make sure that we're able to find work. We're able to do certain things. I mean, it's a lot of things that we still got to accomplish as a whole, as a collective. But this is just a beginning start. I mean, nobody thought about putting a domestic workers union until she got on the scene. When she did that, that changed everything for a lot of people that do household work, whether it be laundry work, whether it be being a maid, babysitter, whatever. That changed a lot. That gave them privilege. That showed them that they had a right. They had a voice. Because these are people that spend 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day to take care of someone else's household or working for a company. These people spend 10 hours a day. And at that time period, you talking about in the 50s, 40s, and 30s, they weren't getting compensated a lot of money. They weren't receiving no life insurance policy. They weren't receiving no health insurance. They weren't receiving none of that. They had no protection. They had no voice, no union representative. But it's a great thing she did that, and she became a voice for that. And she has done a great job, and she's a genius. She's a phenomenal person. Just by reading this alone, it showed that she was wise enough to say, let's start a union. Let's put a union together. And if that's not brilliant, then what do you call it? That's a brilliant idea. I mean, because after all, you are working 10, 12 hours a day, 8 hours a day. So, what the heck? Hold on. Hold up. All right. So let me go ahead and get on to the next information. All right, so I have some books that I recommend. And since this book right here deals with the subject about household workers and domestic workers in general. So this book is called Household Workers United, the untold story of African American women who built a movement. And this is written by Pramila Nadasan. Pramila Nadasan. Okay, as you can see, there's somebody standing out there protesting. All right. So let's go down here. Let's look at the introduction. All right, well, let's look at chapter 1. Chapter 1, conversation about domestic labor. In 1956, African-American playwright and actress Elise Childress published Like One of the Family, Conversation from a Domestic Life, a searing commentary on the status of Black domestic workers. The book was a compilation of stories Childress had written in the early 1950s for African-American press, including Paul Robeson's Freedom newspaper. Excuse me. And good God Almighty. And the Baltimore Afro-American. These conversations from life were reflection by Mildred, a sassy and self-confident domestic, share with her friend Marge in the intimate space of a Black working class home. They convey in colorful terms her dissatisfaction with domestic work. Mildred, who is 32, single and childless, recounts her experience as a day worker in white homes with wit and humor. In the storytelling tradition, in one case, Mildred's employer effusively tells a visiting friend that Mildred is like one of the family and how they loved her. When the guest leaves, Mildred asks to have a word with Mrs. C, her employer. In the first place, she chastised the woman. You do not love me. You may be fond of me, but that is all. In the second place, I am not just like one of the family at all. The family eats in the dining room and I eat in the kitchen. Your mama browse your lace tablecloth for her company, and your son entertains his friend in your parlor. Your daughter takes her afternoon nap on the living room couch, and the puppy sleeps on your satin spread. So you can see I am not just like one of the family. It then goes on to say, as an activist affiliated with the American Communist Party, Alice Childress was part of a Black left cultural community focused on the plight of working class Black women. This network of activists had supported the organizing of household workers in the 1930s, and many had subsequently written political tracts about the exploitation of these workers, although in later years, Childress would attempt to distance herself from her radical past in the 1950s. This political sensibility and her own personal experience undoubtedly influenced her writing of Like One of the Family. Before she became a successful playwright, Childress had worked briefly as a domestic, and she reportedly based the character of Mildred on the life of her aunt. In its portrayal of a witty, sharp-minded domestic worker in 1950s New York, the book debunked myths about domestic service and exposed the dark underside of the occupation. The story inclusion in African-American newspaper around the country ensures a wide readership among household workers, some of whom reach out to Childress. As she describes it, floods of beautiful mail came in from domestics, telling me of their own experiences. The popularity of the essays helped foster a critique of the working condition of African-American household workers. All right, so I'm just going to stop there. And again, you guys can check this book out. It's called Household Workers Unite. So make sure you guys look into this book, because I think this book is very important. It goes into a lot about being in the working class, low community, and working for people who are in the wealthy class, and the type of treatment that you receive. And I would say this, doing some type of domestic work, that can be also dangerous too, because you working with strangers, you working people with people that you don't even know. So by you working with people that you don't even know, and you gotta learn their household, you don't know what they got in their house, you don't know what type of individual they are. So you really ain't got no protection there. And so that's why I admire so much of Dorothy Bolden and her idea of starting a union, because then if something ever goes wrong to where there is harassment, these workers have the right to go to a union representative or take it to the law and file for a lawsuit or whatever the case may be. That gives them more privilege. But you know, a lot of these jobs was very typical in the Black community. So Black women pretty much took on these kind of work. Now, what we used to call it in sociology, they were not only considered as blue collar job, but they was also considered as pink collar. All right. So as a matter of fact, let me go over here and let's look at what a pink collar is real fast. Okay. So I want to show you guys what a pink collar job is, pink collar position. All right. So as you can see, you know, this little logo is cool. We can do it. All right. Now check this out. It says a pink collar worker is someone working in the care-oriented career field or in fields historically considered to be women's work. This may include jobs in the beauty industry, nursing, social work, teaching, secretarial work, or childcare. While these jobs may also be filled by men, they have historically been female dominated, a tendency that continues today, though to somewhat lesser extent, and may pay significantly less than white collar or blue collar jobs. Women work, and defining women to particular fields within the workplace began to rise in the 1940s concurrently with World War II. Okay. So how did the concept of pink collar come into place? The term pink collar was popularized in the late 1970s by writers and social critic Louise Cap Howie to denote women working as nurses, secretary, elementary school teacher. Its origin, however, go back to the early 1970s when the Equal Rights Amendment was placed before the states for ratification at that time. The term was used to denote secretarial staff as well as non-professional office staff, all which were largely held by women. These positions were not white-collar jobs, but neither were they blue-collar manual labor. Hence, the creation of the term pink collar, which indicate it was not white-collar, was nonetheless an office job and one that was overwhelmingly filled by women. So, in a sense, domestic working will fall somewhere under the category of not white collar, pink collar and blue collar, because when you do domestic work, that's mostly dominated by women. So a lot of women got into that domestic work field. All right. So in a way, it is pink collar, but it's more so blue collar. So I would say it's a combination of both. All right. So let's look at what blue collar is. Okay. So blue collar worker. So now a blue collar worker is a working class person who performs manual labor. Blue collar work may involve skilled or unskilled labor. The type of work may involve manufacturing, warehousing, mining, excavation, electricity generation and power plant operation, electrical construction and maintenance, custodial work, farming, commercial fishing, logging, landscaping, pest control, food processing, oil field work, waste collection and disposable, recycling, construction, maintenance, shipping, driving, trucking, and many other types of physical work. Blue collar work often involves something being physically built or maintained. In contrast, the white collar worker typically performs work in an office environment and may involve sitting at a computer or desk. And of course, a third type of work is a service worker, pink collar, whose labor is related to customer interaction, entertainment, sales, or other service oriented work. Many occupations blend blue, white, or pink collar work are often paid hourly wage labor, although some professionals may be paid by the project or salaried. There are a wide range of pay scales for such work depending upon fields, specialty, and experience. Okay, so it goes into the origin of the term blue collar. So the term blue collar was first used in reference to trade jobs in 1924 in Alden, Iowa newspaper. The phrase stems from the image of manual workers wearing blue demis or chambray shirts as part of their uniforms. In industrial and manual workers often wear durable canvas or cotton clothing that may be soiled during the course of their work. Navy and light blue colors conceal potential dirt or grease on the workers' clothing, helping them to appear cleaner. For the same reason, blue is a popular color for boiled suits, which protects workers' clothing. Some blue collar workers have uniforms with the name of the business and or the individual's name embroidered or printed on it. All right. And so historically, the popularity of the color blue among manual laborers contrasts with the popularity of white dress shirts worn by people in office environment. The blue collar slash white color scheme has social economic class connotation. However, this distinction has become blurred with the increasing importance of skilled labor and the relative increase in low paying white collar jobs. All right. So yeah, those are the different type of work areas. So you got the pink collar, blue collar, and white collar. But see, here's the thing: if you in the blue collar, you don't get as much advantage as somebody that's in the white collar field. So somebody who's working on the professional level as a white collar, they have more advantage, more right, and more privilege than anybody else. And that's the messed up part about it. So anything that goes wrong with the corporate, right? I mean, yeah, corporate gets the blame, but they have to pay a fee. But let somebody from a blue collar position or a pink collar position does something, then it's going to cost them their livelihood altogether. And I am a blue collar worker, so but no, seriously, I'm a blue collar worker. I want to see how much a domestic worker is getting paid now. Okay, so I just want to, since we on this topic about domestic workers, let's see how much they're getting paid an hour. Okay. So how much should you be paying your domestic worker in 2021? Employee and Labor Minister, okay, this is in South Africa. Let me see. let's see how much. Let me put. All right, so right here, this is the domestic worker's salary, according to Wikipedia. So the top earners earn about 68,000, and the hourly wages is $33. Maybe depends on where you live. Okay. All right, so how much does a domestic worker make? As of November 8, 2021, the average annual pay for a domestic worker in the United States is $41,323 a year. That's a lot of money. That's a good pay as a domestic worker. Now, just in case you need a simple salary calculator, that works out to be approximately $19.87 an hour. This is the equivalent of $795 a week or $3,444 a month. Now that's a decent pay for a domestic worker. As far as while ZipRecruiter is seeing annual salaries as high as 74,000 and as low as 19,000, the majority of domestic workers' salaries currently range between 30,000 to $46,000, with top earners making 68,000 annually across the United States. So that's a pretty decent salary for a domestic worker now. Starting off around 1987, somebody who's getting paid that amount of money an hour, they got it made. They got it made now. They doing good. I mean, because that's a good way to start off, making that amount. But it depends on how many hours you're working and how many children you have. But anyways, I was just curious about those numbers, just to see how much they're making now. But here's another book that's written by Pramila Nadasan. It is called Welfare Warriors, the Welfare Rights Movement in the United States. Okay. So it's another book. It really don't have that much to do with this topic, but it is by the same author, and it's something that I recommend people to check out. Okay. All right then. So yeah, I'm gonna leave this here if you guys want to check this book out. It's called Welfare Warriors, Welfare Rights Movement in the United States. Pramila Nadasan. All right. Hey Ibibo, how you doing? How you doing, brother? It's been a minute. I hope everything going well with you. Okay. All right. So anyways, that is all I have for this evening. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful, magnificent evening and be safe. And I'm glad your family are doing well. That's great. I'm glad everybody's doing well. All right. Yeah. Make sure you catch the replay. So when you get a chance to, make sure you watch the replay of this. All right. So basically, I was going into the topic about Dorothy Lee Bolden, who was a domestic worker. She founded the National Domestic Worker Union here in Atlanta, Georgia. So I was going into talking about that, and then going into the definition about the pink collar, blue collar, and white collar. And also, not only that, I was also looking at the pay rate that the domestic workers now make. and they making a lot more money than they did back in the 40s and 50s. But anyways, thank you for watching. For those of you that tuned in, with that being said, it's your girl Tiffany, and I am logging off. So please be safe. Peace and power, elevation be to all of you. Until next time, I will come back later to do another video. So y'all be on the lookout for it. All right. Peace. Have a good one.